The iron-barred wagon rattled through the dusty streets of Julesburg, Colorado, and 20-year-old Dorothy Rivers pressed her pale face against the metal, watching the townspeople stare with pity and fear in their eyes, as if she carried some contagious disease rather than a gift she had been born with and could not control. Spirit touched, her aunt had called her before signing the commitment papers, her voice trembling with what Dorothy desperately wanted to believe was regret rather than relief. You have always been different, child, but now you are speaking to empty rooms and pointing at people who are not there. The asylum in Denver will help you. They must help you. But Dorothy knew the truth. The spirits she saw were as real as the wooden bench beneath her now, as solid as the mountains rising in the distance beyond the flat prairie. She had tried to hide her gift, truly she had, but when her dead uncle appeared at his own funeral dinner and begged her to tell his wife where he had hidden their savings, Dorothy could not remain silent. Her aunt had watched in horror as Dorothy spoke to the empty air, describing details only her uncle could have known, and the following morning, the wagon arrived. Now, in September of 1877, she was being transported through this small railroad town, a temporary stop before the final journey to Denver and the asylum that would become her prison. The wagon driver, a thick-necked man with tobacco-stained teeth, had made it clear that she was to be kept locked up tight, as if madness itself could seep through the bars and infect the innocent. "Water," Dorothy called out, her throat raw from the dust kicked up by the wagon wheels. They had been traveling since dawn, and the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly. "Please, I need water." The driver ignored her, urging the horses forward toward the center of town. Dorothy closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration and fear. A woman's voice whispered nearby, and Dorothy opened her eyes to see a translucent figure sitting beside her on the bench, a young woman in an old-fashioned dress from decades past. "They always fear what they cannot understand," the spirit said gently, "but there is one ahead who will see clearly. Hold on just a little longer." Before Dorothy could respond, the wagon lurched to a sudden stop, and the driver cursed as a massive figure stepped directly into their path. Dorothy gripped the bars, peering forward to see a man unlike any she had encountered in the civilized parlors of her aunt's Denver home. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders so broad they seemed to block out the sun. Long dark hair fell past his collar, and several days' worth of beard shadowed his strong jaw. He wore buckskin and fur, and even from her position in the back of the wagon, Dorothy could see the coiled strength in his muscular frame, the way he stood as if the earth itself would move before he would. "Move aside," the driver barked. "Official business." The mountain man did not move. His eyes, a striking shade of gray-green like storm clouds over pine trees, fixed on the wagon, then narrowed as they found Dorothy behind the bars. Something in his expression shifted, softened almost imperceptibly, though his stance remained firm. "Official business that involves caging a woman like an animal." His voice was deep, roughened by years in high altitude and harsh weather, but there was an intelligence in it that belied any assumption of simple brutality. "What is her crime?" "She is mad," the driver spat. "Talks to ghosts and spirits, disturbs decent folk. Her family committed her to the asylum in Denver, and I am paid to deliver her. Now move, or I will be forced to involve the sheriff." The mountain man's jaw tightened. Seeing spirits is not madness. It is a gift that the old medicine men of the tribes would honor. I have seen things in these mountains that would drive lesser men to true insanity, things that cannot be explained by your narrow understanding of the world. Dorothy's heart hammered in her chest. Someone believed her. Someone understood. The spirit woman beside her smiled and faded away like morning mist. "I do not care about your mountain superstitions," the driver said, his hand moving toward the rifle at his side. "Step aside, or there will be trouble." "There will indeed be trouble if you do not release that woman into my custody." The mountain man moved with surprising speed for someone so large, his hand catching the driver's wrist before the rifle could be raised. The driver cried out, and several townspeople began to gather, forming a curious circle around the confrontation. "You cannot just take her," the driver protested, his face reddening. "There are papers, legal documents. Then I will pay her price. Name it." The driver hesitated, clearly calculating. $300. That is what I stand to make from delivering her to Denver," Dorothy gasped. It was a fortune, more money than most men saw in a year. There was no way this stranger, however kind his intentions, would pay such a sum for someone he did not even know. But the mountain man reached into his coat and produced a leather pouch heavy with coins. "Gold dust and nuggets, worth 400 at least. Count it if you must, but do it quickly and give me the keys to that cage." The driver's eyes widened with greed, and he snatched the pouch with his free hand, weighing it and peering inside. After a moment, he nodded and fumbled for the keys at his belt. "She is your problem now. When she proves herself mad, do not come crying to me. I will take that chance." The mountain man released the driver's wrist and took the keys, moving to the back of the wagon with long strides. When he reached the barred door, his eyes met Dorothy's, and she saw something in their depths that made her breath catch. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. It was as if he looked at her and saw not a madwoman or a burden, but simply a person in need. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly as he unlocked the door. "Yes," Dorothy managed, though her legs trembled as she climbed down from the wagon. She had been confined for nearly 2 days, given little food and less water, and the ground seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Strong hands caught her waist, steadying her, and she found herself looking up into the mountain man's weathered face. "Easy," he murmured. "You are safe now. My name is Isaac Holmes. I have a camp in the mountains west of here, far from those who would judge what they do not understand. You can stay there until you decide what you wish to do." "I am Dorothy Rivers," she whispered, "and I do not know how I can ever repay you. That was so much money." Isaac's expression softened slightly, something that might have been the ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Gold is worthless if not spent on things that matter. Come, we need to get you water and food before we begin the journey." He guided her away from the wagon, his hand remaining at her elbow, supportive but not possessive. The crowd parted for them, some faces showing disapproval, others curiosity. An older woman stepped forward, her lined face kind. "If she needs tending, I can help," the woman offered. "I am Mrs. Patterson and I run the boarding house. She looks half-starved. Your kindness is appreciated," Isaac said with a respectful nod. Food and water would be welcome, and perhaps a place for her to wash the road dust away. Mrs. Patterson gestured toward a sturdy building down the street. "Come along then, both of you. I will not have it said that Julesburg turns away those in need." Inside the boarding house, Dorothy felt tears prick her eyes at the simple comfort of a chair and a table, at the bowl of stew Mrs. Patterson placed before her, and the pitcher of cool water. Isaac sat across from her, his large frame somehow fitting into the modest dining room, and waited patiently while she ate. "Slowly," he cautioned when she tried to eat too quickly. "Your stomach will rebel if you are not careful." Dorothy forced herself to slow down, taking smaller bites, sipping water between mouthfuls. Across the table, Isaac watched her with those storm-colored eyes, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks under his steady gaze. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. "You do not know me." I could truly be mad, as they say. Isaac leaned back in his chair, considering his words. 5 years ago, I was tracking elk in the high country during winter. A blizzard came in fast, and I lost my way in the whiteout. I knew I was walking in circles, that I would freeze if I did not find shelter soon. Then I saw her, a Ute woman in traditional dress, standing in the snow as if the cold could not touch her. She beckoned me to follow, and though I knew something was strange, I did. She led me to a cave, well hidden and deep enough to protect me from the storm. When I turned to thank her, she was gone, but I found evidence that the cave had been used as shelter by her people many years before. I believe she was a spirit, Dorothy, and I believe she saved my life. I cannot claim to have your gift of seeing clearly, but I have experienced enough to know that the world holds more mysteries than most men dare to acknowledge. Dorothy felt something tight in her chest loosen. You truly believe me? I do. The simple statement carried the weight of absolute conviction. And I will not let them lock you away for possessing a gift that should be honored, not feared. Mrs. Patterson returned with a clean dress and a basin of warm water. There is a room upstairs where you can wash and change, dear. Take your time. I imagine you have not had privacy in days. Dorothy accepted gratefully, and when she emerged a half-hour later, clean and wearing a simple blue cotton dress that fit well enough, she felt more human than she had since the wagon came for her. Isaac rose when she entered the dining room, a gesture of respect that surprised her. We should leave soon if we want to make good time, he said. The journey to my camp takes most of a day, and I would rather not travel in full darkness. I am ready. Dorothy straightened her shoulders, trying to project a confidence she did not entirely feel. But I must ask, what will people think of me traveling alone with you? I have no desire to ruin whatever reputation I might still possess. My camp is a half-day's ride from a small settlement where several families live, Isaac explained. There is a widow there, Martha Calloway, who has a daughter about your age. I thought you might stay with them while we determine a more permanent solution to your situation. You would be safe and propriety would be maintained. The care he had taken in planning for her welfare touched Dorothy deeply. You have thought of everything. I try to be practical. Isaac paid Mrs. Patterson for the meal and care, then led Dorothy outside to where two horses waited, a large roan gelding and a smaller mare. The mare is gentle. Have you ridden before? Yes, though not in some months. Dorothy approached the mare, running a hand along her neck. The horse whickered softly, and Dorothy felt a moment of peace. Then she noticed a shimmer in the air near the hitching post, and a man in old cavalry uniform faded into view, watching her with sad eyes. Tell my son I am proud of him, the spirit said. Tell Henry Patterson that his father forgives him for not being there at the end. The ranch was more important. He made the right choice. Dorothy glanced at Isaac, who was checking the saddle on his roan. Taking a breath, she made a decision. Isaac, may I speak with Mrs. Patterson once more? There is something I need to tell her. Understanding flickered in his expression. I will wait here. Dorothy hurried back into the boarding house, where Mrs. Patterson was clearing the table. Mrs. Patterson, I know this will sound strange, but I must tell you something. The older woman paused, wariness entering her eyes. Go on, child. There is a man, a soldier in the cavalry. He says his name is Patterson and he has a son named Henry. He wants Henry to know that he is proud of him and that he forgives him for not being at his father's side at the end, that choosing the ranch was the right decision. Dorothy spoke quickly, half expecting the woman to recoil or call for help. Instead, Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears. Henry is my son. His father died 3 years ago while Henry was away managing a ranch in Wyoming. He has carried guilt ever since, believing he should have been here. How could you know this? Your husband's spirit is here, and he wanted you to know. He is at peace. Mrs. Patterson sat down heavily, pressing a handkerchief to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given us a gift, not a curse. Thank you." Dorothy squeezed the woman's hand gently, then returned to where Isaac waited. The look he gave her was approving, almost proud, and warmth spread through her chest. "Ready now?" he asked. "Ready." He helped her mount the mare, his strong hands at her waist lifting her effortlessly into the saddle. Then he swung onto his own horse with the easy grace of a man who spent more time on horseback than on foot. They rode out of Julesburg, heading west, leaving the railroad town behind as the landscape gradually shifted from flat prairie to rolling hills, and in the distance, the first rises of the Rocky Mountains. Isaac rode slightly ahead, his broad back straight, his attention on the terrain around them. Dorothy found her gaze drawn to him again and again, noting the way his muscles moved beneath his buckskin shirt, the confident way he sat his horse, the almost primal sense of strength and capability he exuded. This was a man who could survive in the wilderness, who could protect and provide. It was so different from the soft, civilized men of Denver society, with their pressed suits and carefully combed hair, their idea of danger being a poorly invested stock portfolio. "Tell me about yourself," Isaac said after they had been riding for an hour, breaking the companionable silence. "What was your life like before they tried to send you away?" Dorothy considered how to answer. "Constrained," she finally said. "I lived with my aunt after my parents died of fever when I was 12. She is not an unkind woman, but she values appearance and propriety above all else. I was expected to be a perfect young lady, to attend the right social functions, to eventually marry well. But I always felt like I was playing a role, wearing a mask. And then the spirits became more persistent, harder to ignore, and I could not maintain the pretense anymore. That must have been lonely." It was. Dorothy had never admitted that to anyone, but somehow it felt natural to tell Isaac. "I convinced myself for years that if I just tried harder, if I was good enough, normal enough, I would fit in. But you cannot hide your true nature forever. It finds a way to emerge." Isaac turned in his saddle to look at her, and the understanding in his eyes made her heart ache. "I know something of that. I was raised in Chicago, the son of a banker who expected me to follow in his footsteps. But I could not breathe in that city, could not stand the crowds and the noise and the endless expectation that I would be someone I was not. When I turned 18, I left, headed west, and never looked back. My family considers me dead, I suppose, or at least lost to them. But I found myself in these mountains. I found peace. Do you regret it, leaving everything behind?" "Not for a moment." His answer was immediate and firm. "A man cannot live an authentic life while pretending to be something he is not. Better to be honest and alone than false and surrounded by people who do not truly know you." They rode on, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the increasingly rugged terrain. Isaac pointed out landmarks, shared knowledge of the land with an easy expertise. He showed her where a particular type of healing herb grew, identified animal tracks in the soft earth, explained how to read the clouds for coming weather. Dorothy absorbed it all, fascinated by this world so different from the one she had known. As they climbed higher into the foothills, the air grew cooler and scented with pine. Aspens clustered in the valleys, their leaves beginning to turn gold with the approaching autumn. The beauty of it all took Dorothy's breath away, and for the first time in months, she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. "It is beautiful here," she said softly. "I have never seen anywhere so wild and free." Isaac's expression softened. Wait until you see the high country in winter, when everything is covered in snow and the silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat. Or in spring, when the meadows fill with wildflowers and the elk calve. This land changes with the seasons, but it is always beautiful, always honest. They stopped near a creek to water the horses and rest. Isaac produced jerky and hard biscuits from his saddlebags, apologizing for the simple fare. Dorothy assured him it was fine, settling on a sun-warmed rock near the water. She watched him tend to the horses with efficient, practiced movements, the play of muscles in his arms and shoulders as he checked hooves and adjusted saddle blankets. "How long have you lived in these mountains?" she asked. "7 years now. I built my cabin the first year, in a valley with good water and shelter from the worst winter storms. I trap in the winter, hunt and prospect for gold in the summer. Once a season, I come down to Julesburg or one of the other towns to trade furs and gold for supplies. It is a simple life, but it suits me." "Are you not lonely?" Isaac paused, considering. "Sometimes, but I prefer loneliness to the alternative of surrounding myself with people who expect me to be someone I am not. I have friends among the trappers and prospectors, and I have been welcomed by some of the Ute bands in the area. They understand the value of silence and solitude, of living in harmony with the land rather than trying to conquer it." A spirit appeared then, a young Native American woman who smiled at Dorothy before gesturing toward Isaac and fading away. Dorothy understood the message clearly. This man has been touched by the spirit world. He walks between your world and ours. He is safe. "A spirit just appeared," Dorothy said quietly. "A Ute woman, I think. She wanted me to know that you are trusted by those who have passed beyond, that you walk between worlds." Isaac turned to look at her, something intense and searching in his gaze. "You truly can see them clearly." "When did your gift first manifest?" "I have always seen them, for as long as I can remember. But when I was very young, I thought everyone could. I mentioned the woman in white who lived in our parlor, and my mother grew very upset. She told me there was no such woman, that I must never speak of such things. So I learned to keep quiet, to pretend I saw nothing. But the spirits grew stronger as I grew older, more insistent. Eventually, I could not ignore them anymore." "The old medicine men would have trained you, helped you understand and control your gift," Isaac said. "Instead, your people tried to lock you away for it. That is the difference between wisdom and fear. Do you think I could learn control? Learn to manage the visions rather than being overwhelmed by them." Isaac moved to sit beside her on the rock, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his large frame. "I think you are stronger than you know, Dorothy. You have survived being called mad, being locked in a cage, being torn from everything familiar. You have strength. What you need is someone to believe in you, to help you believe in yourself. Like you." The words escaped before Dorothy could stop them, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Yes," Isaac said simply. "Like me." For a moment they sat in silence, the only sounds the burbling creek and the horses cropping grass nearby. Dorothy felt something shift between them, an awareness that went beyond gratitude or simple kindness. When she dared to glance up at Isaac, she found him watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "We should continue," he said finally, his voice slightly rougher than before. "We want to reach Martha's before full dark." They remounted and rode on. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The trail grew steeper, winding through stands of pine and aspen, crossing streams that ran cold and clear from high mountain springs. Dorothy's legs ached from the unaccustomed riding, but she did not complain. This was her path to freedom, and she would endure whatever discomfort necessary. As twilight deepened, Dorothy saw the glow of lamplight ahead. A small settlement appeared, consisting of perhaps 5 or 6 cabins clustered near a wider stream. Smoke rose from chimneys, and Dorothy heard the sound of children's laughter and a dog barking. "This is the settlement," Isaac explained. "Good people, mostly families who are trying to make a life out here. They help each other, watch out for one another. Martha's cabin is the one on the far end." They rode toward the indicated cabin, and before they reached it, a woman emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. She was perhaps 40, with graying brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and a weathered but kind face. When she saw Isaac, she smiled in recognition. "Isaac Holmes, you are back sooner than expected, and you have brought a guest." Her sharp eyes took in Dorothy's appearance, noting the simple borrowed dress, the exhaustion in her face. Isaac dismounted and helped Dorothy down, his hands steadying as her legs nearly buckled. "Martha, this is Dorothy Rivers. She needs a safe place to stay, away from those who would harm her for possessing a gift they do not understand. I hoped you might have room for her." Martha's expression sharpened with interest and sympathy. "Of course. Come inside, dear." "You look half dead on your feet." She turned toward the cabin. "Emma, come help our guest." A young woman appeared in the doorway, perhaps 19 or 20, with her mother's kind eyes and a shy smile. "Hello, I am Emma Calloway, Dorothy Rivers. Thank you for your hospitality." Emma helped Dorothy inside while Isaac and Martha spoke quietly near the horses. The cabin was modest but clean and warm, with a fire crackling in the stone fireplace and the smell of venison stew in the air. Emma guided Dorothy to a chair near the fire and pressed a cup of water into her hands. "You must be exhausted," Emma said gently. "Mother will want to feed you, and then we can set up a bed. We have a small room where you can have privacy." Dorothy felt tears threaten again at such simple kindness. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." Emma squeezed her hand. "We all need help sometimes. Out here we look after each other." Martha and Isaac entered, and Martha immediately began ladling stew into a bowl. "Eat first, then we will talk," she instructed Dorothy with a tone that brooked no argument. Dorothy obeyed, finding the stew rich and warming. Isaac stood near the fireplace, his large frame somehow fitting into the cozy cabin, and Dorothy noticed how Martha and Emma seemed completely at ease with him. This was clearly not the first time he had visited. "How long can she stay?" Martha asked Isaac directly. "As long as she needs," Isaac replied. "I will pay for her keep." "That is not necessary," Martha said firmly. "If she is willing to help around here, that is payment enough. We could use another pair of hands, and Emma would enjoy the company of someone her own age." "I would be happy to help," Dorothy said quickly. "I may not know much about mountain living, but I am willing to learn, and I will not be a burden, I promise." Martha studied her with assessing eyes, then nodded. "I believe you, but Isaac said you have a gift that others fear. What gift is that?" Dorothy glanced at Isaac, who nodded encouragement. "I see spirits, the dead who linger in this world. I always have. My family thought me mad and tried to have me committed to an asylum. Isaac stopped the wagon and brought me here instead." Emma's eyes widened, but there was curiosity rather than fear in her expression. "Truly, you can see ghosts?" "Yes, they appear to me, and sometimes they have messages for the living." Martha exchanged a long look with her daughter, then turned back to Dorothy. "My husband died 2 years ago, killed in a mining accident. If his spirit lingers, if he has anything to say, I would welcome the message. Too many dismiss the mysteries of this world, but I have lived long enough to know that there is much we do not understand." Dorothy closed her eyes, reaching out with the sense that allowed her to perceive the spirits. After a moment, a man appeared, middle-aged and kind-faced, with miner's dust still on his clothes. He looked at Martha and Emma with such love that Dorothy's throat tightened. "He is here," Dorothy said softly. "He wants you to know that he is proud of you both, of how strong you have been. He says the money he hid in the cabin, beneath the loose floorboard under your bed, Martha, is enough to see you through the winter. He says he is sorry he did not tell you about it before, but he was always bad at remembering such things." Martha gasped and gripped the edge of the table. "There is money hidden in our cabin. Thomas, you old fool, I have been scraping by when there was money right beneath my feet." The spirit smiled, and Dorothy conveyed his response. "He says yes, and he is sorry, but he knew you would find it when you truly needed it. He also says that Emma should accept the marriage proposal from the young man in the next valley, that he is a good man and will treat her well." Emma blushed furiously. "How could you possibly know about that? Your father's spirit told me," Dorothy said simply. Martha rose and went to embrace Dorothy, startling her. "You are a blessing, child, not a curse. Anyone who says otherwise is a fool. You are welcome in this home for as long as you wish to stay." Isaac watched this exchange with satisfaction evident in his expression. When Martha released Dorothy, he moved toward the door. "I should return to my own cabin for the night. Dorothy, I will check on you tomorrow, make sure you are settling in well." "Isaac," Dorothy said, rising quickly, "thank you for everything. I owe you my life." He paused in the doorway, his storm-colored eyes meeting hers in the firelight. "You owe me nothing. Sleep well, Dorothy." After he left, Martha showed Dorothy to a small but comfortable room with a real bed and clean blankets. Emma brought her a nightdress, and for the first time in days, Dorothy undressed and slipped between sheets, feeling safe and warm and, most remarkably, accepted. She lay in the darkness, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the mountain settlement at night, and thought about Isaac Holmes. The feel of his strong hand steadying her, the way he looked at her as if she mattered, the absolute conviction in his voice when he said he believed her. Something was stirring in her heart, something both exciting and terrifying. And as she drifted toward sleep, Dorothy admitted to herself that she wanted to see the mountain man again very soon. Morning came with birdsong and the smell of coffee. Dorothy rose and dressed, helping Emma and Martha with breakfast preparations. The work was simple but satisfying, so different from the idle, constrained life she had led in Denver. Here, every task had a purpose, and no one judged her for being useful rather than ornamental. "Isaac will likely come by this afternoon," Martha said as they kneaded dough for bread. "He usually checks his trap lines in the morning when he is in the area." "Does he come to the settlement often?" Dorothy tried to keep her voice casual. Martha's knowing smile suggested she had not entirely succeeded. "Once every week or two, depending on the season. He has been a good friend to us, especially after Thomas died. Isaac helped us with repairs to the cabin, brought meat when our own supplies ran low, taught Emma how to shoot so she could protect herself. He is a good man, though I know his solitary life worries some of the other settlers. They think it's strange that a man would choose to live alone." "I do not think it's strange," Dorothy said quietly. "I think it takes strength to live authentically, even if that means being alone." "Perhaps he will not have to be alone forever," Martha said, her tone significant. "Perhaps there is someone who could understand his need for solitude while also sharing his life." Dorothy felt her cheeks warm and focused intently on the dough beneath her hands. The possibility that Martha was suggesting what Dorothy barely dared to think about herself was both thrilling and overwhelming. She had known Isaac for less than a day. It was far too soon to be thinking about anything beyond survival and safety. Yet she could not stop thinking about him. True to Martha's prediction, Isaac appeared in the early afternoon, leading a mule loaded with fresh-killed deer. He had clearly bathed in a stream somewhere, his long, dark hair still damp, and he had trimmed his beard slightly. The sight of him in the afternoon sunlight, all coiled strength and masculine capability, made Dorothy's heart flutter foolishly. "I thought you could use the meat," he said to Martha, beginning to unload the deer. "There is enough here for several families." "You are too generous," Martha protested, but she was already calculating how to distribute the windfall among the settlement. Isaac's eyes found Dorothy where she stood in the cabin doorway. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in a long time." Dorothy stepped outside, drawn toward him despite her nervousness. "Thank you for bringing me here. Martha and Emma have been so kind." "I am glad." He finished unloading the deer and moved closer, his voice lowering so only she could hear. "I wondered if you might like to see my cabin tomorrow." "It is not far, perhaps an hour's ride. I could show you more of the area, help you become familiar with the land." Dorothy's pulse quickened. Being alone with Isaac in the wilderness would be considered highly improper by the standards of Denver society. But Dorothy was no longer part of that society, and the rules that had constrained her there seemed meaningless in the face of mountains and sky. "I would like that very much," she said. Isaac's expression softened with pleasure. "Good. I will come for you after breakfast." He stayed for the midday meal, entertaining them with stories of his encounters with wildlife and the changing seasons in the high country. Emma hung on every word, and even Martha seemed charmed by his tales. Dorothy watched him, noting how his entire demeanor changed when he spoke of the wilderness, becoming animated and passionate. This was a man who had found his true home, his true self. After he left, Emma helped Dorothy with mending while Martha prepared dinner. "Isaac has never offered to show anyone his cabin before," Emma said casually. "He values his privacy greatly." "Perhaps he simply wants to help me learn the area," Dorothy replied, though her heart hoped for more. Emma laughed. "Dorothy, I may be young, but I am not blind. The way that man looks at you is not the way someone looks at a casual acquaintance. He is interested, and unless I am very mistaken, you are interested as well." Dorothy set down her mending, staring at her hands. "Is it foolish? I have known him for only a day." "Time is different out here," Emma said wisely. "In the wilderness, you see people's true nature quickly because there is no room for pretense. Isaac is a good man, Dorothy. If he cares for you, that is a gift. Do not dismiss it simply because it happened quickly." That night, Dorothy lay awake thinking about the next day, both anticipating and fearing it. She was drawn to Isaac in a way she had never experienced before, a pull that went beyond gratitude or physical attraction, though both of those were certainly present. There was a recognition in him, a sense that he saw her, truly saw her, in a way no one else ever had. The morning dawned clear and cool, with frost sparkling on the grass. Dorothy dressed carefully, borrowing riding clothes from Emma, and tried to calm her nervous excitement. Isaac arrived as promised, leading the gentle mare Dorothy had ridden before. His eyes swept over her with approval, and Dorothy felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked with a slight smile. "Ready." They rode out of the settlement, heading higher into the mountains. The trail was well worn, clearly one Isaac traveled regularly. He pointed out landmarks, teaching her how to navigate by the shape of certain peaks and the flow of the streams. Dorothy absorbed it all, fascinated not just by the information but by the man sharing it. "You love this land," she observed. "I do. It is the first place I have ever felt truly at home, truly myself." Isaac glanced back at her. "Do you think you could be happy here, away from civilization, from the comforts you knew?" "The comforts I knew were a prison," Dorothy said honestly. "I would rather have cold and hardship and freedom than warmth and plenty and a cage, though I hope you will teach me the skills I need to survive." I am woefully unprepared for this life. You will learn quickly. You have the intelligence and the will. Those are more important than experience." He slowed his horse so they rode side by side on a wider section of trail. "And I will teach you whatever you need to know. I am a patient teacher." They climbed steadily, the air growing thinner and cooler. Dorothy's legs ached, but she did not complain, determined to prove she could handle this new life. Finally, they crested a rise and Isaac gestured ahead. "There. My home." Dorothy looked down into a sheltered valley, green with meadow grass and bisected by a clear stream. A cabin sat near the water, solid and well built from squared logs, with a stone chimney and a covered porch. Nearby was a lean-to for the horses and a small shed for storage. Mountains rose on all sides, their peaks already dusted with early snow, and the whole scene was breathtakingly beautiful. "It is wonderful," Dorothy breathed. Isaac's expression showed pride mixed with vulnerability. "It is not much, but it is mine. I built it with my own hands, every log and stone. It has kept me warm through 7 winters and provided shelter from summer storms. It is enough." They rode down into the valley, and Isaac helped Dorothy dismount near the cabin. Up close, she could see the quality of the construction, the care taken in every detail. This was not a rough shelter thrown together for temporary use. This was a home built to last. "Come inside," Isaac invited, opening the door. The interior was dim after the bright sunlight, but as Dorothy's eyes adjusted, she saw a surprisingly comfortable space. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall with a cooking crane and various implements. A sturdy table and chairs occupied the center of the room, and a bed was tucked in the far corner. Shelves held supplies and books, more books than Dorothy would have expected a mountain man to own. Furs and blankets were piled neatly, and everything was organized and clean. "You keep a better house than most men I have known," Dorothy observed. Isaac smiled slightly. "Living alone, you learn that organization prevents problems. And I was raised by a very particular mother who insisted I know how to care for myself and my environment." Dorothy moved to the shelves, examining the books. She recognized some classics, philosophy, natural sciences, and poetry. "You are well read. Books are one luxury I allow myself. I trade for them when I can, and I read them until I have memorized every word." He moved to start a fire in the fireplace. "Would you like coffee? I can make a simple meal if you are hungry. Coffee would be wonderful." As Isaac prepared the coffee, Dorothy explored the cabin with curious eyes. Everything spoke of a man who was competent, intelligent, and careful. This was not someone running from life, but rather someone who had consciously chosen a different path. She found herself imagining what it would be like to live here, to wake each morning to the sound of the stream and birdsong, to share this space with someone. "What are you thinking?" Isaac asked, handing her a tin cup of strong, hot coffee. Dorothy accepted the cup, wrapping her hands around its warmth. "I am thinking that you have built a good life here, a real life. I am thinking that I envy you that." Isaac studied her for a long moment. "You could have it too. A life here in these mountains. It would not be easy, Dorothy. Winters are hard, supplies are sometimes scarce, and you would be far from the society you were raised in. But you would be free to be yourself, to use your gift without fear. Are you offering me a place here?" Dorothy's heart hammered against her ribs. Isaac set down his coffee cup and moved closer, his height and breadth suddenly very apparent in the enclosed space. But Dorothy felt no fear, only a tingling awareness that seemed to spread through her entire body. "I am offering you whatever you want," he said quietly. "If you wish to stay with Martha and Emma, I will support that. If you wish to travel elsewhere, to find another town or city where you might make a new start, I will help you." But if you want to stay here to build a life in these mountains, then yes, I am offering you that. I am offering you a home, protection, and whatever else you might need or want from me." Dorothy set her own cup down with trembling hands. "We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you are brave and strong. I know you possess a gift that connects you to mysteries most people cannot comprehend. I know you have suffered for being different, and I know you deserve better. I also know that I have not felt about anyone the way I feel about you, not in all my years in these mountains." He reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I am not good with fancy words, Dorothy. I am a simple man who lives a simple life. But I see you clearly, all of you, and I am not afraid. If anything, I am in awe." Dorothy felt tears prick her eyes. "I am not sure I deserve such faith. You deserve everything good this world can offer." Isaac's hand remained near her face, his touch feather light. "But I will not pressure you. Take whatever time you need to decide what you want. I am patient, and I am not going anywhere. What if what I want is you?" The words escaped before Dorothy could call them back, but she found she did not want to. "What if I want this, whatever this is between us, and I want to stay here and learn to live this life beside you?" Isaac's eyes blazed with emotion. "Then that is what you will have." He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but Dorothy rose on her toes to meet him. Their lips touched, gentle at first, tentative. But then Isaac's arms came around her, pulling her against his solid frame, and the kiss deepened into something that made Dorothy's head spin. She had been kissed before, chased pecks from suitable young men under her aunt's watchful eye, but this was different. This was fire and need and promise all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since I first saw you behind those bars, looking so defiant even though you must have been terrified." "I was terrified," Dorothy admitted. "But then you appeared and something in me recognized you. I know it sounds foolish. Not foolish. I felt it too." Isaac pulled back slightly, cupping her face in his large, calloused hands. "But we should not rush. You have been through trauma and your emotions are likely confused. Stay with Martha for a while longer. Let yourself heal and adjust. Let us spend time together and truly get to know each other. Then, if you still want this, we will talk about our future." Dorothy wanted to protest that she knew what she wanted now, but wisdom held her tongue. Isaac was right. She needed time to find her footing in this new world, to be sure her feelings were not simply gratitude or trauma-induced attachment. "You are wiser than I am," she said softly. "I have simply lived longer and made more mistakes. Come, let me show you the valley. There is a place where hot springs bubble up from the earth, warm enough to bathe in even during winter, and a meadow where elk graze in the evenings. You should know this land if you are considering making it your home." They spent the rest of the day exploring the valley and the surrounding hills. Isaac showed her edible plants, how to read animal signs, where the best fishing spots were located. He was endlessly patient with her questions, and Dorothy found herself falling more deeply under his spell with every passing hour. Here was a man who was confident in his strength but never cruel, knowledgeable but not condescending, powerful but gentle. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, they returned to the cabin. Isaac packed some supplies for Dorothy to take back to Martha's, things he thought she might need or appreciate. "I will ride back with you," he said. "It will be dark soon and the trail can be tricky." The ride back was quiet but comfortable, a companionable silence that spoke of growing trust and deepening connection. When they reached Martha's cabin, Isaac helped Dorothy down from her horse, his hands lingering at her waist. "May I see you again tomorrow?" he asked. "I would like that." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his rugged face into something approaching beautiful. "Good. Sleep well, Dorothy." She watched him ride away into the gathering darkness, then turned to find Martha and Emma watching from the cabin door with knowing smiles. "Do not say anything," Dorothy warned, but she was smiling too. "We do not need to say anything," Martha replied. "Your face says it all." The following weeks settled into a pattern. Dorothy worked alongside Martha and Emma during the mornings, learning the skills she would need to survive in the mountains. She learned to shoot, to preserve meat, to identify plants, to read the weather. She proved to be a quick study, and Martha often praised her progress. In the afternoons, Isaac would appear and they would spend time together. Sometimes he taught her practical skills like tracking or starting a fire without flint. Other times they simply talked, sharing stories of their pasts, their dreams, their philosophies. Dorothy learned that Isaac had been reading philosophy and natural sciences for years, that he had a keen and curious mind beneath his rough exterior. Isaac learned that Dorothy had always felt like an observer of life rather than a participant until now, that her gift of seeing spirits had isolated her, but also given her a deeper understanding of the connections between all things. The spirits continued to appear to Dorothy, but here in the mountains, they were different, gentler, perhaps, or simply less desperate. She helped several families in the settlement by passing messages from their dead, bringing comfort and closure. Word of her gift spread, but here it was met with respect rather than fear. These were people who lived close to the land, who understood that the world held mysteries that could not be explained away by science or religion alone. As autumn deepened and the aspens turned gold, Dorothy realized she was happier than she had ever been in her life. She was falling in love with Isaac Holmes, truly and deeply, and she believed he felt the same. It was there in the way he looked at her, the way he always seemed aware of where she was, the gentle touches that lingered longer each time. One crisp October morning, as Dorothy helped Martha pick the last of the garden vegetables before the first hard freeze, Martha spoke quietly. "He is going to ask you to marry him soon. I can see it in the way he looks at you, the way he is preparing." Dorothy's hands stilled in the earth. "How can you tell?" "He has been working on something in his cabin, some project he will not let anyone see. And he has been trading for supplies that a single man would not need. He is building a life big enough for two, Dorothy. The question is, what will you say when he asks?" "I will say yes." Dorothy spoke without hesitation, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I love him, Martha. I know it has only been a few weeks, but I love him. I want to build a life with him in these mountains." Martha smiled and squeezed Dorothy's hand. "Then I am happy for you both. You have found what most people spend a lifetime searching for." The following Sunday, Isaac asked Dorothy to come to his cabin, saying he had something to show her. Dorothy's heart raced as she dressed carefully and rode out with him. The day was beautiful, clear and cool, with the mountains standing sharp against a brilliant blue sky. When they reached the valley, Dorothy noticed immediately that something was different. The cabin had been expanded, a new room added to one side. "What have you been doing?" she asked, sliding down from her horse. Isaac's expression was nervous, almost shy. "I wanted to show you before I said anything, but I have been building. Come see." He led her to the new room, opening the door to reveal a space that was clearly meant to be a bedroom. A large bed frame stood against one wall, beautifully crafted from smooth pine logs. Windows on two sides would let in morning light. A wardrobe stood in the corner, and there was space for more furniture. "I made the bed frame myself," Isaac said quietly, "and I thought if you were willing, this could be our room. The main cabin could become living space for both of us, and this would be private, just ours." I know it is not much compared to what you might have had in Denver, but I can add more if you want. I can make this into a real home." Dorothy turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It is perfect. It is more than I ever dreamed of." Isaac cupped her face, wiping away the tears with his thumbs. "Dorothy Rivers, I know we have not known each other long by conventional standards, but I have never been more certain of anything than I am of this, of us. I love you. I love your strength and your gift and your brave heart. I want to spend my life protecting you, honoring you, loving you. Will you marry me? Will you build a life here with me?" "Yes," Dorothy laughed through her tears. "Yes, Isaac, I will marry you. I love you too, so much it terrifies me sometimes." Isaac pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Dorothy felt safe and cherished in a way she never had before. When he kissed her, it was with a passion that spoke of deep love and fierce commitment. They stood there in the new bedroom, holding each other as the autumn sunlight streamed through the windows, and Dorothy knew she was finally home. The wedding took place 2 weeks later, a simple ceremony in the settlement with everyone in attendance. Dorothy wore a dress that Martha and Emma had made, simple but beautiful, and Isaac wore clean buckskins, and a shirt that had clearly been acquired specially for the occasion. The settlement's oldest resident, a former preacher named Mr. Davis, performed the ceremony under the brilliant October sky. "Do you, Isaac Holmes, take this woman to be your wife, to honor and protect, to cherish and respect, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." Isaac's voice was strong and sure. "And do you, Dorothy Rivers, take this man to be your husband, to honor and support, to cherish and respect, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." Dorothy's voice matched his uncertainty. "Then by the power vested in me and before these witnesses, I pronounce you husband and wife." Isaac kissed her then in front of everyone, a kiss that was both tender and possessive, and the small crowd cheered. Martha cried happy tears and Emma hugged them both. A celebration followed, with food and music and dancing. It was nothing like the elaborate society weddings Dorothy had attended in Denver, but it was perfect in its simplicity and genuine joy. As the sun set and the celebration wound down, Isaac lifted Dorothy onto his horse and swung up behind her. They rode back to their valley, to their cabin, as the stars began to emerge overhead. Dorothy leaned back against her husband's solid chest, feeling his arms secure around her, and marveled at how her life had transformed. "Happy," Isaac murmured against her hair, "more than I ever thought possible." At the cabin, Isaac carried her over the threshold, a gesture that made Dorothy laugh even as her heart swelled. He set her down gently in the main room, where a fire already burned in the fireplace, clearly tended earlier in the day. "I have something for you," Isaac said, moving to a chest in the corner. He returned with a package wrapped in cloth. Dorothy unwrapped it to find a beautiful leather-bound journal and several pencils. "Isaac, this is wonderful. I thought you might want to record your experiences, your interactions with the spirits. It could be valuable knowledge, something to pass on to others who might have similar gifts. And I know you enjoy writing. You mentioned it once." That he had remembered such a small comment, had thought to provide for that interest, made Dorothy's throat tight. "Thank you. I will treasure this." They stood there for a moment, the reality of being married, of being alone together with all that implied, suddenly very present. Dorothy felt nervous anticipation flutter in her stomach. Isaac seemed to sense her nervousness. "We have all the time in the world," he said gently. "There is no rush for anything. This is our home now, our life. We move at whatever pace feels right to both of us." Dorothy moved closer, placing her hands on his broad chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. "I am not afraid. A little nervous, perhaps, but not afraid. You have never given me reason to fear you, Isaac. You have only ever been gentle and patient with me. And I always will be. He covered her hands with his own. You are precious to me, Dorothy, the most precious thing in my life. She rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring everything she felt into that kiss. Love and trust and desire and gratitude and hope. Isaac responded with matching emotion, his strong arms wrapping around her, lifting her against him. When they finally parted for air, Dorothy whispered, "Take me to our room, husband." Isaac's eyes blazed with love and desire. "Gladly, wife." He carried her into the new bedroom, and Dorothy caught a glimpse of more additions he had made. Candles waited on surfaces, ready to be lit. The bed was made with soft furs and blankets. Everything spoke of care and consideration, of a man who wanted his wife to feel cherished. The rest of the night passed in a haze of love and discovery, of gentle touches and whispered words, of two people learning each other in the most intimate way possible. Isaac was patient and tender, making sure Dorothy's first experience of physical love was everything it should be. When they finally lay together afterward, Dorothy's head on Isaac's broad chest, his strong arms around her, she felt complete in a way she had never experienced before. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness, "and I love you." Isaac pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for trusting me with your heart, Dorothy. I will spend every day of my life proving worthy of that trust." Dorothy fell asleep feeling safe and loved and utterly content. The winter that followed was hard in some ways. Snow fell deep in the valley, and temperatures dropped to levels Dorothy had never experienced in Denver. But the cabin was warm and well stocked, and Isaac had prepared for everything they might need. He taught Dorothy how to manage the trapline, how to preserve meat and cure hides, how to read the snow for animal movement. She proved to be a capable student, and by midwinter she could handle a rifle with confidence and set snares that actually caught game. The spirits still came to Dorothy, but less frequently now. It was as if they recognized that she was happy and settled and did not want to intrude. When they did appear, it was usually with important messages, and Dorothy dutifully recorded these encounters in her journal as Isaac had suggested. On the coldest nights, when the wind howled around the cabin and snow piled high against the walls, Dorothy and Isaac would sit by the fire, reading aloud to each other or simply talking. They learned each other's stories in deeper detail, shared dreams and fears, built the foundation of a partnership that would last a lifetime. "You ever regret it?" Isaac asked one night in February. "Giving up your old life, such as it was, for this?" Dorothy looked up from the shirt she was mending, considering the question seriously. "Not for a moment. That was not living, Isaac. It was existing, playing a role, pretending to be something I was not. This is living. Hard work and cold winters and all." Isaac pulled her closer on the bench they shared. "You have adapted better than I dared hope. You are strong, Dorothy, stronger than you know. I had a good teacher." She leaned against his shoulder, comfortable and content. "And I had strong motivation. This life with you is worth any hardship." Spring came eventually, as it always does, and the valley transformed from white silence to green abundance. Dorothy planted a garden near the cabin with seeds Martha had given her, and she watched with delight as the first shoots emerged from the earth. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows, and the stream ran high with snowmelt. Isaac took Dorothy higher into the mountains, showing her the summer ranges where they could hunt and prospect for gold. In late spring, Dorothy began to suspect she was pregnant. Her monthly courses stopped, and she felt different though not unwell. When she shared her suspicion with Isaac, his face lit up with such joy that it took her breath away. "A child," he breathed, placing his large hand gently on her still flat belly. "Dorothy, are you happy about this?" "I am." She covered his hand with her own. "I know it will be difficult bringing a child into this wilderness, but I want this. I want a family with you." Isaac pulled her into a careful embrace. "I will protect you both, I promise. Whatever you need, whatever the baby needs, I will provide." True to his word, Isaac became even more attentive as Dorothy's pregnancy progressed. He insisted she not do heavy work, took over many of the more strenuous chores, and made the journey down to the settlement more frequently to check with Martha, who had delivered many babies in her time. In the autumn, almost exactly a year after their wedding, Dorothy gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The labor was long and difficult, but Martha was there to help, and Isaac never left Dorothy's side, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement even when his face was tight with worry. When the baby finally arrived, his indignant cries filling the cabin, Dorothy wept with relief and joy. Isaac cut the cord with shaking hands, then held his son for the first time with an expression of such wonder that Dorothy's heart nearly burst. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered. "Dorothy, he is perfect. What should we name him?" Dorothy asked, exhausted but happy beyond measure. Isaac considered for a moment. "What about Isaiah? It means God is salvation. I think it fits, do you not? This child saved me in a way, showed me that I could have a family, a full life, not just solitary existence." "Isaiah Holmes," Dorothy smiled. "It is perfect." The baby, Isaiah, proved to be healthy and strong with his father's gray-green eyes and his mother's dark hair. As Dorothy recovered from the birth, Isaac doted on both his wife and his son, proving to be a natural father. He made a cradle that rocked beside their bed, carved toys from soft wood, and spoke to Isaiah in a gentle voice that Dorothy had never heard him use before. Winter came again, and Dorothy marveled at how different it was this time, with a baby to care for. Isaiah kept them awake with his cries but also brought joy to the darkest, coldest days. Dorothy loved watching Isaac with their son. The way his large, capable hands were so gentle, the way he sang old songs in a surprisingly good baritone to soothe the baby to sleep. On Christmas Eve, as they sat by the fire with Isaiah sleeping in his cradle, Dorothy reflected on how much her life had changed in such a short time. "2 years ago, I was locked in a wagon being taken to an asylum," she said softly. "I thought my life was over. I could not have imagined this, any of this." Isaac reached over and took her hand. "2 years ago, I was alone in this cabin, convinced that solitude was my fate. Then you appeared and everything changed. You gave me a family, Dorothy. You gave me a real home, not just a shelter." "We gave each other everything," Dorothy corrected. "I could not have become who I am now without you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their son sleep and listening to the fire crackle. Outside, snow began to fall, but inside, all was warm and safe and full of love. The years that followed brought both challenges and joys. Dorothy gave birth to 2 more children, a daughter they named Diana, and another son they named Ian. The cabin was expanded again to accommodate the growing family, and Dorothy's skills as a mountain woman grew until she was nearly as capable as Isaac at managing their wilderness home. Her gift never left her, and she continued to help those in the settlement and beyond who sought her abilities. Isaac always supported her, defending her when skeptics questioned or criticized. Together, they became known as a couple who bridged the practical and the spiritual, who could be relied upon for both physical help and deeper wisdom. Isaiah grew into a strong, intelligent boy who loved the mountains as much as his father did. Diana proved to have inherited her mother's gift, beginning to see spirits around the age of 5. Instead of being frightened or trying to suppress it, Dorothy and Isaac taught her to understand and control her ability. Ian, the youngest, was a happy, adventurous child who feared nothing and climbed everything he could reach. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Dorothy by taking her back to the hot springs he had shown her that first day. The children were safe with Martha and Emma, who now had children of her own, and Dorothy and Isaac had a rare day alone together. "Do you remember the first time I brought you here?" Isaac asked as they soaked in the warm water, surrounded by snow-dusted rocks and pine trees. "Of course. I remember thinking that I could be happy in these mountains, that I could build a life here." Dorothy moved closer to her husband, resting against his broad chest. "I was right. I knew that day that I wanted to marry you," Isaac admitted. "I tried to tell myself it was too soon, that I should wait and be sensible, but I knew, as did I." Dorothy tilted her head back to look up at him. "Thank you, Isaac, for saving me that day in Julesburg, for believing in me when no one else would, for loving me exactly as I am." Isaac cupped her face gently, his calloused thumbs stroking her cheeks. "You saved me too, Dorothy. You gave me a reason to be more than a hermit hiding from the world. You gave me love and family and purpose. I am the one who should be thankful. Then we are both blessed." Dorothy kissed him, a kiss that held 10 years of love and partnership and shared struggle and joy. They stayed at the hot springs until the sun began to set, talking and laughing and simply being together. Then they rode back to the cabin, to their children and their life, hand in hand. As the years continued to pass, the Holmes family became an institution in the mountains. Isaac taught other settlers how to survive and thrive in the wilderness, while Dorothy helped countless people through her gift of seeing spirits. Their children grew strong and capable, carrying forward the values their parents had instilled: honesty, courage, respect for the mysteries of life, and fierce independence. When Isaiah turned 18, he announced his intention to explore farther west, to see the territories beyond Colorado. Instead of trying to hold him back, Isaac and Dorothy encouraged him, knowing their son needed to find his own path as they had found theirs. Deanna chose to stay near the mountains, eventually marrying a young man from a neighboring settlement and continuing to use her gift to help others. Ian became a guide, leading hunting and prospecting parties through the high country with his father's skill and his mother's intuitive understanding of the land. Dorothy and Isaac grew older together, their hair graying, their faces weathering like the mountains around them. But their love never diminished. If anything, it deepened with each passing year, each shared challenge, each quiet moment of contentment. On a spring evening in 1897, 20 years after that fateful day in Julesburg, Dorothy and Isaac sat on the porch of their cabin, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. Their grandchildren played in the meadow below, their laughter floating up on the evening breeze. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not stopped that wagon?" Dorothy asked, her hand finding Isaac's as naturally as breathing. "Every day." Isaac squeezed her hand gently. "And I thank God or fate or whatever power guides the universe that I was in Julesburg that day, that I saw you and recognized something in you that called to something in me. The spirits told me that morning that someone would come who could see clearly," Dorothy remembered. "I did not understand at the time, but they meant you. You saw me clearly, Isaac, all of me, including the parts I had been taught to hide and fear. That was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. And you gave me the gift of family, of love, of a full life instead of a half-lived existence." "We saved each other, Dorothy." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and stars began to emerge. A spirit appeared on the porch, an old Ute woman Dorothy had seen before, and she smiled at them both before gesturing toward the mountains and fading away. "She says we have walked a good path," Dorothy translated. "That our story is one that will be remembered, that will give hope to others who feel different or lost." Isaac pulled Dorothy closer, tucking her against his side. "Then we have lived well. That is all anyone can hope for." As night fell over the valley, Dorothy reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. From a frightened young woman locked in a cage to a confident mother and grandmother. From someone told she was mad to someone whose gift was honored and valued. From lonely and constrained to loved and free. All because one man had chosen to see her clearly and had protected her when she was most vulnerable. "I love you, Isaac Holmes," she said softly. "And I love you, Dorothy Holmes. Today, tomorrow, and for whatever time we have left in this world and whatever comes after." They sat together on their porch, surrounded by the mountains they loved, listening to their grandchildren's laughter and feeling the peace that comes from a life well lived and a love that had endured every test. The Wild West had been hard and sometimes cruel, but it had also given them each other and the freedom to build a life on their own terms. In the end, that was all they had ever wanted, and they had found it together. Years continued to pass in the rhythmic pattern of mountain life. Seasons changed, children grew and had children of their own, and the settlement expanded as more families joined the community that Dorothy and Isaac had helped build. Their cabin became something of a landmark, a place where people knew they could find wisdom, help, and acceptance. Dorothy's gift remained strong even as she aged. Spirits continued to seek her out, knowing she would listen and help bridge the gap between the living and the dead. She had filled dozens of journals with her experiences, creating a record that Deanna treasured and would eventually pass on to her own gifted daughter. Isaac remained strong and vital well into his later years, though he eventually began to slow down. He trained younger men in wilderness skills, becoming a respected elder in the community. But his favorite time was always the evening spent with Dorothy, sitting together and reflecting on their shared life. When Isaac was 65, he fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Dorothy nursed him with fierce determination, refusing to let him go. She brewed the healing teas Martha had taught her to make, kept him warm, and sat beside his bed reading aloud from his favorite books. Her love and stubborn will pulled him through, though the illness left him weaker than before. "You are not allowed to leave me yet," Dorothy told him firmly as he recovered. "We still have years ahead of us, Isaac Holmes." "I am not planning to go anywhere without you," he assured her, his voice raspy but sincere. "We made a promise to each other, remember? For as long as we both shall live, I intend to keep that promise as long as possible." And he did. They had several more good years together, years of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, of watching the community they had helped build flourish, of quiet mornings and peaceful evenings. Their love story became local legend, the mountain man and the woman who saw spirits, two outsiders who had found perfect understanding in each other. When Isaac finally passed away in his sleep at the age of 71, with Dorothy's hand in his and his family surrounding his bed, Dorothy felt the loss like a physical blow. But even in her grief, she knew that they had been blessed beyond measure. They had loved deeply and completely for nearly 30 years. Not everyone could say that. At the funeral, held in the meadow near their cabin with the mountains rising all around, Dorothy stood strong and dry-eyed as friends and family shared memories and stories. Her children and grandchildren stood with her, their presence a testament to the life she and Isaac had built together. As the service concluded, Dorothy saw a familiar figure standing at the edge of the gathering. Isaac, young and strong as he had been when they first met, smiled at her with infinite love and tenderness. The sight of him, whole and healthy again, brought tears to her eyes for the first time that day. "I am not gone," his spirit said, his voice as clear as if he stood beside her in flesh. "I will wait for you, Dorothy, for however long it takes, and I will always be near, watching over you and our family." "I know," Dorothy whispered. "I love you, Isaac, and I love you. Thank you for the most incredible life I could have imagined." Then he faded, and Dorothy knew he had moved on to whatever waited beyond, though his promise to watch over her remained. She stayed in their cabin, cared for by her children and grandchildren, continuing to help those who sought her gift. She filled her days with useful work, and her evenings with memories of the love she had known. Dorothy lived for another 5 years after Isaac's death, remaining sharp and engaged until the very end. On a warm spring morning, surrounded by 3 generations of the family she and Isaac had created, she closed her eyes and passed peacefully from this world to the next. Those who were present said that in her final moments, Dorothy smiled as if seeing someone beloved, and her last words were, "I am coming, my love. Wait for me just a little longer." In the spirit realm, Isaac stood ready to receive her, young and strong, his arms open wide. When Dorothy's spirit emerged from her body, she found herself young again too, free from the aches and limitations of age. She ran to Isaac, and he caught her up in his arms, holding her close as he had done so many times in life. "Welcome home," he whispered against her hair. "I am home wherever you are," she replied. Together, they walked into the light, their love transcending death as it had transcended every other challenge they had faced. Behind them, in the cabin in the mountain valley, their family mourned but also celebrated, knowing that Dorothy and Isaac were together again, that their love story had not ended but merely moved to a new chapter. The cabin remained in the family for generations, each new occupant adding their own story to its history. Diana's descendants continued to carry the gift of spirit sight, and they honored Dorothy's memory by using their abilities to help others, just as she had done. Isaac's teachings about living in harmony with the wilderness were passed down through the years, creating a legacy of respect and understanding. The journals Dorothy had kept were eventually published, becoming an important historical record of life in the Colorado mountains in the late 1800s, as well as a unique documentation of spiritual experiences. Scholars and believers alike studied her words, finding in them wisdom and comfort. But perhaps the most enduring legacy was the love story itself. In the community that had grown from that small settlement, parents told their children about the mountain man who had saved the woman who saw spirits, and how their love had proven that understanding and acceptance were possible even in the harsh wilderness. Young people facing their own struggles found hope in knowing that Dorothy and Isaac had built a beautiful life, despite beginning in such dire circumstances. The story was passed down through generations. She was sent away for seeing spirits clearly. A mountain man honored her gift and protected her always. And together, they built a love that lasted beyond life itself, a love that gave hope to all who heard their tale. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the hardships they had endured or the challenges they had overcome, but the love they had shared and the family they had built and the example they had set. They had proven that being different was not a curse but a gift, that true love saw clearly and accepted completely, and that a life lived authentically, no matter how difficult, was worth more than any amount of comfortable pretense. Their story became legend, then folklore, then truth preserved in family memories and written records. And somewhere beyond the veil that separates this world from the next, Dorothy and Isaac continued their love story, eternal and unchanging, a light in the darkness for those who still believed in the power of true love to overcome any obstacle, to bridge any divide, to endure beyond the limitations of mortal life. The mountains still stand over that valley in Colorado, and some say that on quiet evenings you can still feel the presence of the mountain man and his beloved wife, watching over the land they loved and the family they created, their love a blessing that continues to flow through the generations, reminding all who encounter their story that love, true love, never dies. It only grows stronger, deeper, and more beautiful with time,